Number 1.
Curry was last seen in Atlanta, Georgia on May 27, 2011. She had spent the week with her sometime boyfriend, Yusuf Mujahid, at his home in the 1400 block of Beecher Street. He stated they got into an argument and she left angrily at approximately 3 a.m., leaving their 16-month-old son behind. She has never been heard from again. Curry did not have a car. She had used public transit to get from her sister's home in Duluth, Georgia to Mujahid's home. A photo of Mujahid is posted with this case summary. He and Curry had a volatile relationship, and he was once arrested after he allegedly punched her in the face and threatened her with a stun gun. He claims Curry was also violent towards him, and once stabbed him with scissors. He didn't report her missing for 3 days. Mujahid and Curry's family don't believe she would have abandoned her son, and her family stated it would be uncharacteristic of her to leave in the middle of the night, and without calling anyone. Curry was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, the youngest of 5 children. She attended Grant High School, where she played softball and ran track, then moved to Georgia during her senior year to live with her sister. She graduated from Martin Luther King Jr. High School in Lithonia and, at the time of her disappearance, was studying online with the University of Phoenix for a degree in healthcare administration. Although there's no hard evidence of foul play in her case, her loved ones don't believe she went missing voluntarily, and they are afraid for her safety. Her disappearance remains unsolved.
Number 2.
Teresa was last seen walking down Lawrence Street near her family's single-wide trailer in Macon, Georgia, at approximately 8 p.m. on August 15, 1999. She has never been seen again. Teresa said she was going to a friend's house to visit some puppies, but never arrived there. An extensive search of the area produced no clues as to her whereabouts. Teresa's mother's former boyfriend, Cody Landers, lived with her family in 1999. He was Teresa's mother's fiancé at the time, but they have since broken off their engagement. In October 2000, Landers was indicted on 7 child molestation charges involving 2 children. He said that he failed a polygraph test which he took voluntarily shortly after Teresa's disappearance, but claimed that the test was administered improperly. He called himself a suspect in Teresa's case, but the police never named him as one. He is now in prison after pleading guilty to the child molestation charges. Landers has never been connected to Teresa's case, and no arrests have been made in her disappearance. Some investigators feel Teresa's case may be connected to the abductions and murders of Heaven Ross from Northport, Alabama in 2003, and Shannon Nicole Polk from Prattville, Alabama in 2001. The girls were Caucasian 11-year-olds, and they all went missing during the month of August from trailer parks where they lived. There was construction going on near the site of each girl's disappearance, and it has been theorized that a construction worker or workers were involved in the cases. Shannon was found deceased 7 weeks after she disappeared. Heaven's remains were not recovered until late December 2006, over 3 years after her disappearance. Both girls' murders remain unsolved, and no hard evidence links them to Teresa's case. Teresa's case remains unsolved. She was a student at Alexander IV School in 1999. She has previously lived in Bibb County, Georgia. Authorities believe foul play may have been involved in her case.
Number 3.
Deborah was last seen at her home in the 2300 block of Woodbine Drive in Augusta, Georgia at 4:30 p.m. on March 24, 2006. Her husband, John, stated they argued, and Deborah told him, "If you leave, I won't be around when you come back." He didn't believe her, and left the house. When he returned, Deborah was gone, and so were many of her belongings. There has been no activity on her bank account or cellular phone since she went missing. John is considered a possible suspect in his wife's disappearance. A photograph of him is posted with this case summary. He did not report her as a missing person. Deborah's daughter filed a report over a month after she was last seen. John and Deborah had a troubled marriage. There were at least 4 domestic violence reports in their relationship in the year prior to her disappearance, and at one point Deborah claimed her husband had threatened her life. He began cohabiting with his ex-wife after Deborah went missing, a fact he attempted to conceal from authorities. John took a polygraph about his wife's disappearance. The results were considered to be inconclusive, and authorities announced they believed he used countermeasures during the test. John was on felony probation at the time Deborah disappeared. The same month she went missing, he pleaded guilty to selling methamphetamines. He moved to South Carolina 4 months after Deborah's disappearance, and was arrested there on several charges, including burglary and grand larceny, in 2007. These charges are unrelated to his wife's disappearance. Deborah has left home in the past, but she has never been gone for this long. Her case remains unsolved and is being investigated as a homicide.
Number 4.
Frances Alexander fondly remembers raising her daughter, Brenda, in Georgia. She was a very good girl growing up, Frances told Dateline, adding that Brenda grew into an independent young woman. Brenda was around 16 years old when she had her first child, Michelle, in 1980. Shortly after, she married Michelle's father, Jimmy Lee, and the couple had 2 sons named Kevin and Shannon. She had the kids when she was pretty young, Frances told Dateline. She struggled for a bit, but I ended up raising all 3 of the kids. They all lived in Nicholson, Georgia, until Brenda and Jimmy got divorced, at which point Brenda moved about 15 miles away to Athens, Georgia. While there, Brenda got married to a man named Eugene Edmondson. According to Frances, Brenda and Eugene moved into a room they rented from Brenda's uncle. I don't remember a whole lot from that time, Brenda's daughter Michelle told Dateline about Brenda's presence in her childhood, though she says her mother Brenda did come often to visit. On January 12, 1987, Frances says that Brenda, in her early 20s and suffering from epilepsy, came over after being released from the hospital. She had just had a seizure and came home from the hospital with medicine, Frances told Dateline. That was the last time I ever saw her. Frances says that night, Brenda went to a convenience store to buy cigarettes. She never returned. Brenda's husband Eugene told Frances that she was last seen at the convenience store with cigarettes. According to Michelle, who was 6 when her mother disappeared, Eugene reported Brenda missing to the Athens Clarke County Police Department a couple of days after she was last seen at the convenience store. At the present time we are trying to locate the original case, files Public Information Officer Jeffrey Gilland with the Athens Clarke County Police Department told Dateline. He added that Athens Clarke County Police Department was unable to comment further on this report. Dateline could not reach Brenda's husband Eugene for comment. Michelle told Dateline she and her family are no longer in contact with Eugene. Since then, both Frances and Michelle have been searching for Brenda. It's been hard on me, not knowing where she's at, Frances told Dateline about her missing daughter. Frances says police often call her to identify bodies that might be Brenda. That's hard for me, going to see these bodies, and none of them are her. I just wish I could find her. Michelle doesn't remember much about her mother, but she still wonders what happened and wants to find answers in Brenda's disappearance. We had our moments. She used to play with my hair when I was growing up and see me and my brothers, Michelle told Dateline. There's always going to be that part of me that wonders what happened to her, even though I didn't have her there. Brenda Lee Alexander Edmondson would be in her mid-50s today. She has blondish brown hair and blue eyes. If you have information related to Brenda's disappearance, please contact the Athens Clarke County Police Department at 706-603-3330.
Number 5.
Farah was last seen fishing on a boat in Rocky Comfort Creek near Louisville, Georgia between 10:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. on September 13, 2002. Later that same day, his boat was found in the creek, positioned over a fallen tree nearly 1 foot above the waterline off Clarks Mill Road west of Louisville, which is Farah's favorite fishing place. Farah's 3 fishing rods, his cage of crickets, and his hat, upside down, were on the boat. His truck was parked on shore nearby with his keys and shotgun inside. An extensive search of Rocky Comfort Creek and the surrounding woods turned up no indications of Farah's whereabouts. Authorities believe he probably suffered a mishap on the water and drowned, but they did investigate other theories, such as foul play, suicide and a voluntary disappearance. Farah was not having any financial problems at the time of his disappearance, and he has not used any of his credit cards since he went missing. Investigators found no evidence that he left of his own accord, and he was happy with his life at the time of his disappearance, and was not having any personal problems. He was semi-retired and caring for his mother. Farah's family believes he met with foul play. He had been attacked by 2 men with a stun gun at the entrance to Rocky Comfort Creek in February 2002. It is unclear whether any arrests were made in the assault. He remains classified as a missing person, and his disappearance remains unsolved.
Number 6.
Patricia Alice Faulkner was living in Marietta, a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, with her 2 children Angie and Richie, in the fall of 1977. It was a Sunday, and she was expecting her estranged husband at the house they once shared to sign the papers that would finalize their divorce. That same evening, on Sunday, October 9, 1977, the 35-year-old disappeared from her home and was never seen or heard from again. Patricia, known to her friends as Patty, was a slight woman at only 5'3" and 100 pounds. She was born in Macon, Georgia, and lived in Alabama for a number of years before returning to Georgia. She had married her childhood sweetheart, Richard Wayne Faulkner, in 1959 when she was 17 and he 19. Together they had 2 children. A girl, Angela, Angie, in 1960 and a boy, Richard Jr., Richie, in 1967. After 18 years of marriage, however, their relationship fell apart and they separated. Wayne Faulkner was living in Birmingham, Alabama, and had traveled to Marietta that Sunday to sign divorce papers. That night, their 17-year-old daughter Angie overheard her parents arguing. Then, she heard a door slam. When she woke up the next morning, her mother didn't have breakfast waiting for her and her brother like she usually did on school days. She wasn't in the house at all. Patricia was gone, as was her blue 1977 Buick Riviera. When Angie left for school that Monday, she was concerned that her mother hadn't been at home that morning. She called a friend who suggested she ask her father where her mother was. Taking her friend's advice, Angie woke up her father and asked him. Wayne replied that she'll probably be back soon. Patricia didn't come home. 3 days later, Wayne finally reported her missing to the police. He eventually told police that Patricia had left the house angrily during the night. When questioned, he said he suspected she caught an airplane and went away. Police at the time believed Wayne that Patricia left of her own accord, and they never searched the house. 2 weeks later, Wayne reported to the police that he had found her blue 1977 Buick Riviera at Hartsfield International Airport. When Wayne told investigators that there weren't any signs of violence in the car, they took his word for it and left the car with him. Investigators never examined the car. Patricia's friends described her as a devoted mother and didn't believe she would have ever abandoned her children. She left behind all her clothing, cash, credit cards and her 4-carat diamond wedding ring. Investigators reopened Patricia's missing persons case in 1993, after a woman's skeleton was found in a wooded area 3 miles from Patricia's home in Marietta in June of that year. Authorities thought it might be Patricia's, but over a year later the match was ruled out with help from the FBI crime lab. Wayne Faulkner was convicted of bank fraud in the early 90s and sentenced to a year in the Talladega Corrections Institute. Many questions still surround Patricia's disappearance. Did she storm out in a fit of anger, as her husband claims? If so, where did she go, and how did she get there with no money and no communication with any family or friends? Why did her husband wait 3 days to report her missing? What could investigators have found if they hadn't listened to Wayne Faulkner over the testimony of Patricia's friends and family and investigated this case? Patricia's case remains unsolved. To this day, her friends and family search for answers.